If you like this podcast or the previous ones, please consider buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Frankie'sPod. It just goes to help fund the software and the hosting. Hi, welcome back to the podcast. Tonight I'm talking to Zoe Robson. Now, Zoe joined the Army in 2002, serving for 12 years, and she served with the Royal Military Police. We won't hold that against her, and I won't say the M word much, but we'll see what she's got to say about it. Hi, Zoe, how are you doing?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on.
No, honestly, if like I said to everyone who comes on, if it wasn't for yourselves, I'd just be sat here talking to myself, and I probably would get arrested. So for you, it's the same questions that I ask everybody. It's the 5 questions on where did you grow up? Why did you join the military? What was it like? Why did you leave? And what I'm really interested in the last bit here is what have you done since? I've seen a few of your TikToks and stuff like that, and I know how you felt when you left. I've seen you mention that in some of them. I'd like to get to know that bit, transition from military and civilian a bit more. But if you just want to start off, give us a bit of your background, like where you grew up, why you joined the military.
So it's not the nicest story, I guess. It's it was a very unstable environment. So I was born in Northern Ireland in the early 80s. My mum met a very horrible man, and he just, if you imagine the most evilest of people, that was him. So at some point, we lived in Dundrum, Northern Ireland, and at some point before I was 3 years old, we had to make a great escape, and we moved to Ballymena. And it wasn't great. My mum met a soldier, and there was this conflict of my mum trying to move on, and then this other person, my biological father, kind of creating chaos in the background. We used to share visits, me and my older sister, because we didn't really get on. And one day she didn't come back, so he just refused to give her back. The police were involved a lot. There was a lot of abuse, and I think it wouldn't be fair to my mum and my sister to say too much, but it was just horrific. So my mum met a soldier, and she was working in the fish and chip shop in Ballymena. This soldier walked in with his tash and blew her away. So they ended up having 2 more children when we lived in Northern Ireland. And from my mum's story and recollections, it was at that kind of time when I was 3 or 4, we went to some sort of parade, and there was somebody wearing a red beret, and I just took a liking. And it's the God honest truth, that's where I wanted to be an RMP from. I didn't want to be a policewoman, I just wanted that red beret. It just stuck with me until obviously I got it. So we left Northern Ireland when I was about 6, I think, and it was really traumatic. I don't really know how to kind of make sure that I say this in the right way without one particular day, the police kind of raided the house. I was at my biological father's house, my sister was there, and me and my sister were hiding in an airing cupboard. And I'd basically been forced that day, or maybe the day before, I can't remember, I was so young, to go to the doctors and then a solicitor's, because I had bruises on me. And my biological father was basically trying to convince me that my stepdad had done it, and he was trying to get custody. It was just horrific. It was absolutely horrific to kind of be, I don't know, manipulating children like that. So anyway, we went to court. We ended up, my mum, my stepdad and my younger sisters, we ended up moving to England, and unfortunately my older sisters had to stay in Northern Ireland. So it was just a really evil, horrible start to life. It really was. And I think even when we moved to England, I was getting calls from him saying, don't eat your dad Dave's food, that's his name, my stepdad. If you don't eat it, we can all be together. So then I developed an eating disorder really early, like in primary school. I was year 5 or year 6, every Wednesday I was seeing a play therapist. So basically you'd go and you would draw and they would talk to you, and as you're drawing they're trying to figure out, what's going on. In year 7, I went to Stonehenge School in year 7. We lived in Bulford, I think, at that time, and I was sitting with the head teacher at lunchtime to make sure I ate.
Bloody
It's
hell.
just like a lot of it was really screwed up, really, really screwed up. And then my mum and stepdad ended up having another baby. So there's 5 girls. And I think when we moved, so I would have been 11, 12. My older sister, we managed to get her. My mum just fought so hard to get her back. So my mum, she left home at 15. She had met this really nice man who kind of tricked her into my mum is a very clever woman, and I remember when we moved to Lock Hill she was doing multiple jobs. So there was what's it called, the British Legion Training Centre in Lock Hill. She was part of setting up the nursery there, and when the Queen came to visit she opened it and everything. My mum was working in a potato factory at that point and putting cards into plastic wallets to kind of sell. She was working a butt off. My mum's now an MBE. So it's just, she's an absolute superstar. So we moved to Germany when I was about 12. My mum and stepdad then separated. My mum and us 5 girls moved to JHQ, Mönchengladbach. I hate school. I absolutely hated it.
Service skills are a bit different as well from
just,
normal skills, as
it was just awful. It was just not a great time. But also, I think I was so naughty in school. I was that kid that was always in detention, trashing stuff, skiving, on report constantly. I didn't even attend my GCSEs. Just didn't like it. I was more interested in boys, smoking, drinking. There's a lot of young squaddies, I guess, around that time. So me and my friends were around young squaddies and in their cars, those Clios that came out, boy racers. Oh gosh, good. Yeah, and then so I think we left JHQ when I was 17 or 16, and we moved back to the UK, and then straight after the Army Career Centre. But I did try to join at 15. So in JHQ, they have obviously the Army Education Centre, and I finished school at 15 because when my birthday is in August, and I went there and they were like, no, fuck off, you're too young still. And I was like, what am I going to do? I hate school, I can't spell, I'm just really thick. What am I going to do? Because all I wanted, that's all the vision that kept me going, is when you grow up, what do you want to be? I'm going to have a red beret. And my family would laugh at me and say, no, you're going to be a hairdresser, or you're going to be a nail technician, you're going to be something super girly. And I was like, no, I'm going to get that red beret. I don't know what it involves, but I want that red beret. So then we moved back to the UK, and as soon as I was allowed to, straight to the Army Career Centre.
it's I know we said before this, about the 5 questions and people, the interesting stories of people beforehand, and not everyone's has a bad story. Thanks, you do.
Yeah.
But,
and it's really weird.
You survived it.
Yeah.
Whether that was with the help of the military or not, I don't know. But obviously the love of your mother and the strength of your family as well.
Yeah, it's a really weird. It's my life. So when you see things in movies and people are talking about certain things, you're like, oh my God, that's so bad. But this is just my life. I think with some of the things that I've experienced in the military, plus that, I'm super overprotective of my kids because I know how horrible this world can be. I've seen it from every angle, how evil, this world can be.
Yeah, I know, I get that. I really do. And you said that overprotective. It can go the other way because, you could probably have the feelings that overwhelm you, and you remember what happened to you as a kid, or somebody else remembers what happened to them as a kid, and they try and shut that away. Don't talk about it. Don't do this. Try not to think about it, and that can affect their families as well, where they see something else happening, they don't want to get involved because they don't want to bring up the memories themselves and stuff like that. But it's good that you can talk openly about it. Obviously, like you said, without going into too much information, you don't want to, involve other people. Well, and that's fine. So, what was it like actually joining up then, going to careers off first, and asking to join the RMPs? Did they look at you funny?
No, it was all. I didn't realise what I was in for. Okay, there was definitely a clause missing that you're going to get abuse for the rest of your life. That was not something I ever. And obviously, I'd been around RMP most of my life, and just in and out. One of my best friends, her dad was in the RMP, so I kind of, but didn't realise the abuse, I guess, or how disliked they were. So I went to the Army Career Centre and I did the barb test, and I failed it. I failed it to the point they said you can be a postie.
Wow.
I just, that was not what I wanted to do. So obviously I didn't accept it. I went home and I got loads of books on the military police, and I wrote lines. Spelling, I didn't realise I was dyslexic until I was about 21 and I went to the Army Career Centre, and I was like, oh, not Army Careers, the Army Education Centre. So I'm really struggling. I can't read numbers properly. They're jumping out at me and stuff like that. So at school, I really struggled, really struggled. And actually, I remember one day in year 10, I copied a book word for word, thinking, yes, I'll definitely pass this now. Got like a D. It was almost like it was personal. Yeah. So yeah, I went.
You getting? Sorry to interrupt there, but you getting diagnosed with dyslexia then? You know, that's obviously, and that was probably the main reasons you were playing up at school.
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
I couldn't read. I couldn't write properly. I definitely couldn't read. I don't read phonics. So when my kids are learning, I'm like, what does that say? I've taught myself to read in patterns, or I've written lines. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but even when I joined the RMP and I was serving in Germany, I would literally write lines of the same word just to get the pattern in my head. Numbers seem to be worse for me. So if I go to like B&Q, I'm like, I'm here to pick up my order. Oh, what's the order number? I was like, can you just read it? So I'm going to get it wrong. Can you just read it? Yeah, so numbers seem to be worse for me. So yeah, after the barb test, failed that. Went home and just wrote lines. I didn't know what I was doing, and there was no purpose behind it. It's what I needed to do something. Went back and then got one of the highest scores on the barb test. So I was like, yes, in core RMP, please. Thanks very much. Let's go.
It just shows what perseverance can do.
Yeah, it's never been anything else apart from a red beret. That's it. And then I went to selection, failed selection. I was only about 50 kilos at the time, so I had to put weight on. Or maybe I was 52, I had to be 55. It was not very much I had to put on, but I'm 5'7", so I was a very slender, tiny little thing. And I wasn't well. I probably wasn't eating right. Yeah, so I failed it. So then I had to go home. Told my mum I failed it. What am I going to do? No, I have to go back and redo it. And I literally just concentrated on, I think, having the opportunity to see actually what selection was about. It made me go home and kind of just concentrate on those things. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night, panicking about it and just running on the spot in my bedroom. Just running for ages.
You really wanted it, didn't you? Bloody hell.
Just the red beret. That's all I wanted. So yeah, I went to selection the second time, passed it. Great. And then went to ATR Winchester. That was scary. That was really scary. I think it was. Do you know? Have you ever watched Our Girl? It's the thing with what they do. Yeah, that first the first episode where she turns up and she drops everything and she's getting shouted at and her helmet's running down the hill. That was me. Honestly, all the stuff coming out of my Bergen and everybody shouting at me. I'm like, oh fucking hell! Oh God, what am I doing here? Yeah, I got back squatted in phase 1 and I tore the ligaments in my ankle on an exercise. Went into Biff's platoon. Yeah, it wasn't easy trying to get in the army for me.
It doesn't sound it. I mean, it's a good job you were determined, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then when I finally got out of phase 1, went to phase 2. So phase 2 for military police is very academic. You have to learn about the law, but military law and civilian law. So but then still all the same fitness tests and all those.
That's down to Chichester, is it?
Yeah, well, it was Chichester. They've gone tri-service now, but it was Chichester, yeah.
I mean, I've got a guilty thing, or guilty, not guilty secret, but so I was artillery.
Right.
And when we moved back from Germany in the late 80s, we were at Thorney Island, which is just down the road from Chichester. And when you used to get into trouble, you couldn't get jailed because you didn't have a jail. So they used to send them to our guard room. And we used to be like, yes. So they used to get hammered. They'd come to our guard room for 24 hours or whatever for a beating. They got hammered before they got sent back because you were just like, yeah.
Oh, I think I did some driver training there, actually.
I mean, it's not, what, 15 minutes, 20 minutes away?
Yeah,
If that?
yeah. Oh,
And
that
I've
just
spoken to other guys who've been to Chichester, and they said, like you said there, it's very academic. It's quite intense. You've got to learn a lot quickly.
Yeah, you only have 6 months. But I remember you saying about getting beasted. My first week at ATL Winchester, I got sent to jail because I couldn't march. And I think if they he was like, roll your shoulders back, and I'm like, I couldn't understand what he was saying. If he just said stick your tits out, then I probably would have got it. But I was like, what am I doing? I got frog marched off the parade square and then absolutely got ragged. Learnt my lesson very quickly of what I needed to do. I also passed out on my pass out, fainted.
But that's not that uncommon. There was guys that did that on our pass out. We had SLRs then with big bayonets on. They were lucky. There was a few close shaves with that, to be honest. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So in Chichester, it was good. It was good. It was. I didn't think much at all about what the next step would be. So you get at that time when you join the army as RMP, you got a green beret and an SPS cap badge, and you didn't get your red one or the cap badge until you had completed phase 2 or completed the elements in phase 2. And the day that I got my red beret, it was just this really weird shit. I've got it. Now I've actually got to play soldier. Fuck. It was this realization because all I'd focused on was this red beret and getting it. I don't even think I wanted to be in the army, if I'm honest. I rang my mum up doing driver training. I was like, I don't, because we learned how to drive in phase 2, and then we also did trailer. I remember ringing her up saying, I don't want to be in the army if I've got to drive. I hated it. I hated it so much. And then very shortly after I got my red beret, the 6th RMP died in Iraq. And that was a massive kind of wake up of the whole situation in Iraq and other things. That really did hit home. That I think seeing things kind of build up from 9/11, it doesn't really feel like it's at home. And even with the British Army things on Sky News, again, it still didn't really hit home. But I remember being in the NAFI and there was a big projector screen and it coming up on Sky News, and it was just horrific. Couldn't even comprehend that 6 RMP who had been murdered. It was a massive wake-up.
I think that was where everyone realised that it changed. I mean, we were out there in 2003 on the invasion, if you want to call it that, of the war, whether it be a legal war or whatever. That's not for us to decide. We've got the feeling. We rocked up into Iraq, we rocked into Basra. Jesus Christ, I was driving around me and my mate in a Land Rover looking for off licenses, and we found one. That was quite a good night. And the locals, they were all waving. They wanted us to be there. They wanted us to see us. And we thought, hell, this was easy. It'll all be over. And then all of a sudden, it was just a massive shift in dynamics. And that happened. Another instance happened. Whether that was because we mismanaged not me as the regiment, but the British Army mismanaged the situation, or should I say, the Americans mismanaged the whole fucking invasion, or the aftermath of it. But, that's down to the history books or whatever. But that's when that happened. Everyone thought, "Fuck, this ain't going to be a bed of roses," and it wasn't. It's just one of them things. But like you say, it does open your eyes, and you think, actually, I've got to be, there's got to be a bit grown up here. There's gonna, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I mean, you saying that, all of a sudden, you've gone from the recruit to shit. Yeah, I've got to step up. Type of thing. Is that how you felt?
I think it was a very scary. At no point did I think I would be going to Iraq. I don't know. It just didn't ever feel real. And even I think when I got to my first unit, it still didn't hit. I don't know. It's just a really. I think also, I don't know, it's just a
You
really,
felt as though it was happening to other people and it wasn't going to happen to you.
yeah,
I'm never going to have an accident. Other people have them type of thing.
yeah. But this, I think, if I'm right in my memory, the first 100 soldiers that died in Iraq, 13 of them were RMP, and as the second small regiment in the army, that is huge, absolutely huge. And I get a lot of abuse on TikTok and on social media about not being real soldiers and RMP this and the other, but people don't understand that there's kind of two roles to being in the military police. You've got the general police duties, and then we're attached to all regiments, doing what they're doing. I've been on exercise with tankies and stuff like that, and having to do what they do, in a different kind of title, maybe prisoner of war kind of, or stop and search type thing. But people don't understand that we have to be really kind of adaptable, and yeah. So I think the first 100 that passed away, 13 of them being RMP is quite significant.
I mean, there'll always be that that banter thing, calling them. I'm going to say the M word. Calling them monkeys and stuff like that.
Get out.
Calling them monkeys and that. If someone just listened to that bit there, if they just tuned in and went, he's just called someone a monkey. It's what we used to call the RMP, right? Yeah. Before somebody goes politically correct with that, You've got to be careful nowadays. So I just cut that bit and put it on TikTok. I'd go to fucking jail. I told you, I've interviewed Sean O'Rourke, and when he was on about the duties that he'd carried out doing like close protection and stuff like that, I kind of knew them things happened, but not really. When we're in the military, we're kind of like, we look in on ourselves. Now it's our regiment. There's no other part of the army. I was in the artillery. Didn't give a toss what the engineers were doing. Didn't give a toss what the signals were doing. I'm in the artillery. We're the best. Don't care what anyone else is doing. And then you get attached arms coming. Like we had attached for in Bosnia and places like that. We had RMPs. We had medics.
Yeah.
And you start to see what other people do. I mean, the only times I ever really come across RMPs was in Northern Ireland. Either going out on patrol with them or the continuity NCOs who used to stay there all the time for like a 2-year posting, and they mingled with each battalion or each regiment or battery or subunit that was coming in, and they had a hell of a job. I mean, they had the best rooms. Don't get me wrong, they had the best rooms and the best kit, and some good parties in them rooms. No, we never drunk much. But that's the only time you come across stuff like that where. On your side, you get to see a bigger picture.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because we have to delve into. So let's say, I don't know, a crime from something that's quite insignificant to something that's quite serious. We have to delve into the dynamics of the regiment, people, players, all those type of things. You really get a feel of not just the regiment, but the camp, how that works, people else. It's not. Although I know that some of old school kind of hierarchy within the RMP like to keep things quite in-house. I think, a lot of my friends when I first joined, we were what's the word when you fraternize? With what's that word? When we went out and stuff, and it wasn't. We didn't always say we were RMP. Yeah, but we, it was good to kind of just be with other people. And I remember one of my boyfriends was in the Royal Signals, and we broke up, and my RSM going, "Come on, you need to be with this lovely RMP lad," and I'm like, "Ew, gross." Who wants to date an RMP? Gross.
I suppose you get that thing as well where you go like, "Oh, it's all regiment you're in. I'm an RMP." Not talking about anything. It's like meeting a copper. What are you doing? Oh, you're in the police. Shit. What can't I say? Or what can I say?
Nervous.
Yeah. Guilty by just association type of thing.
Yeah.
So what was it like when you first turned up for your first unit? How did you feel? How did you feel as though everyone was like having a pop at you type of thing?
No. So when I got there, I was pretty much rear party. I think they were just about to deploy, or that kind of, they'd done all their op tag. So I was rear party, and a lot of the guys from close protection had come back. So it was just it was quite. I think that first year or so, there was a lot of drinking in the mess. There wasn't a lot to do because obviously the garrison had deployed. Just a lot of drinking and eating and drinking.
You see, that's the other thing that used to grip people in the rest of the army. You just come out of training with a tape. And I know I know it has to be that. I know it has to be that way because you have to have that authority. It just, it winds people up. I'm sorry, but it does.
No,
It's the way it is.
I can appreciate it. I can absolutely. I think.
But then again, you're getting mess bills straight away, so fair enough. Yeah, it's wrong about.
Yeah, I've never had. I think after I left, people had said that they'd been around like a lot of Blanchjacks who were just up their own arses and kind of quite, rude and stuff. But I don't think I got much abuse. I think the great thing about Germany, that was my first post in Osnabrück, was you have full authority over kind of anybody that's British or Commonwealth or whatever. So the GCP, which the German Civil Police, would hand everything over to you. So at 19, I was walking around on patrol with a pistol, and there was a lot of responsibility, and there were some really good things like helping somebody who'd been in a domestic violence incident. I remember being called to a fire and us kind of rushing in and helping this woman get out of a house in a flat. There was a lot of really good things, that we kind of were able to do in that first time. And then I got from there, I kind of got attached to Hona, and I deployed with Hona. I don't think much happened between then. It was just kind of learning on the job, and I actually can't remember much. I think I must have been wankered most of the time. I don't know. I can't just.
What was your interactions with the GCP like? Because I'll put it this way, right? There was a Sunday afternoon in Hona, and there was a gentleman who may have been slightly inebriated.
Maybe.
Or, to put it bluntly, I couldn't fucking walk straight. And it was a Sunday afternoon, and I was going from one bar down. We were heading down towards the Irish bar, I think it was. And the GCP stopped us. Well, it stopped me, mate. I was in the bushes having a piss. The gentleman was in the bushes having a piss. And the Germans pulled me out and started telling me off. And I started calling them all Nazis and shit like this. And they were just laughing at me. You know what I mean? They pinned me down and they had to strap me up, basically. They had to go back to the car to get another belt because they couldn't get rid of my legs. And it was just, it turned into a little war of attrition where I wasn't going to be taken and they weren't going to let me go. But we were all laughing about it. It was really, really weird. It was surreal. And they took me to the police station just to calm me down. And they called the RMPs. And the RMPs rocked up and said, right, what do you want us to do with him? They said, we'll take him. And they're like, no, he hasn't. What are you charging him with? And they're like, nothing. He's just drunk. I was like, we don't want him. And they didn't want him. So I'm watching these two guys arguing and who was going to arrest me. I just got in the back of the police car in the end. So we just
We were like taxi home.
Yeah, which was wrong because I lived in the quarters. But it was just that interaction between them. They were like, well, we don't want him, you have him. We don't want him, you have him. And they actually seemed a bit of, whether it was just that situation, I don't know, but they seemed to be rubbing up each other a bit. There was like the German civil police kind of looked down on them. If you know what I mean, like, so you're just military type of thing or whatever. I don't know. Did you experience anything like that with them?
Actually, in my first post, I actually did a detachment with the GCP for 6 weeks, and I think it was about kind of bridging those kind of relationships. I went out on patrol with them. In Osnabrück, it was a really, especially in like, I would say every night actually, not even at the weekend. Very. Lots of squaddies out in certain bars and stuff. So it was just good to have an RMP present. I don't know what the fuck I would have done because I remember being called to a hospital one time because somebody had fallen on a curb and his finger was literally hanging off and he was kicking off in hospital. So I went and there was some other RMP there as well. And I sat on his legs and I did nothing. It was as if I put the piece of paper on his leg, because I was that thin and small. Like, I don't know what I would have done, had something really kicked off at that time anyway. But we had good relationships, I think, with the GCP. That we had an interpreter in every police station, which was really helpful. It was never had any problem. I think in my second posting after Iraq, it wasn't a nice, it wasn't.
It's cordial.
It was a fractured relationship, and it was very much like, I got called one night to there was a riot outside one of the pubs, and there was me and another female RMP, and we turned up in the riot van. She's got a notebook out, I'm slapping cuffs on everybody, and these GCP officers are trying to take over. And I think in my mind, I knew that if they had arrested these squaddies, the squaddies would have been fucked. They would have had their watches stolen from them, probably would have got their head kicked in, because there was a time when soldiers were getting abused by the GCP. And I think that's why thinking back now, I'm like, how the heck did I slap these cuffs on these massive squaddies and drag them, turning the cuffs to the riot van? How did I do that and not? But I think it was because I was like friendly forces.
Yeah, I mean, Plus you've had the training as well. Don't put yourself down for that.
No, yeah.
There's that letter of authority, or that stamp of authority that no matter how much of an arsehole we are when we're drunk, it's still, it's a monkey. It's a monkey on a certain, I do what they say. And then also in the back of your mind, we would probably know that I'd rather get lifted by them than them. Especially like in places out in Canada, we would much rather get lifted by the RMPs than the Mounties, because they could be a bit rough as well. I'm not saying I've had experience of that.
I think that's probably what it was. But also, I think I was always very fair. And I think even kind of, not judging anybody until kind of, even like when I sat with an interview with someone, I know that they had done something wrong. I think even then, just being very fair, because it wasn't my opinion to have. Obviously, if somebody was doing a dick to me, then I wasn't going to be playing nice and stuff. And that's not me being big-headed or anything, but you have to almost kind of set the scene of where this is going. And I think sometimes as a female, I'm quite a feminine female, if I can say that, because some females aren't feminine in the army. I think that the expectation is that people could walk over me, or they could flirt their way into certain situations, or, the amount of times that I've been sexually assaulted, is just unreal in uniform. So you have to really it just comes from experience, because you don't get taught how to deal with that. So it really does come from experience. And I think I've also been really lucky that my patrol partners, or the teams that I've been with, have really been, we've been a good team, and we've had each other's backs. Might not always got on, but I've always served with a really good group of people who get it. When I was doing that detachment with the GCP, I remember being dropped off. They were dropping me back off at camp, but I think there was an RMP car on the way, and then as we kind of got closer, there was this squaddy in between the street just shouting. And the GCP said, if you don't go and get him, we're going to nick him. And I was like, okay. I jumped out the car, went over, and I was like, all right, mate, come on, got the van, we'll take you back, not a problem. Get in the back of the van. And everything was fine. And then when we got to, I don't know what camp it was, but it was Royal Signals, got to the camp, and we opened the back of the right van, and he pissed in the back of the van. And he started walking away.
Nothing I shouldn't, but...
But to be fair, it was just whatever. It's not a massive thing, is it? And actually, the riot van, you can clean it quite easily. So, but I went and got him, and he was wankered. He was stumbling. I was like, no, you're gonna have to clean this up, because I'm not doing this, and we've got to go back on patrol, not this type of stuff. And he got very handsy with me, and there was this tussle, and then he punched me in the chest. I don't think we had a stab vest at that point. Or maybe I didn't have it on because I had just come off the GCP patrol, I'm not quite sure. But he punched me in the chest, and I just dropped. I ended up in hospital. When we were tussling, I kind of pushed him, and there was this tiny little lip on the guard room door, and he kind of tripped through it and went head first. And And then I remember just falling to the floor, not being able to breathe, because like, you proper like whacked me one. Yeah, I was in hospital, and then I remember being stood up at the RSM the next morning, like pumped up on drugs, like trying to stand to attention. He was like, "Do you want to make a complaint?" I can't remember if I said yes or no, but that was quite intense.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I just want to jump back a little bit there, where you mentioned something about the amount of times you've been sexually abused while on patrol. I mean, was this intentional, people, or was it just grabby, trying to move out of the way, or?
I think it was either going on patrol, you either got abuse, hey up the monkeys are here, or just monkey noises, and even driving past people, it's just one of those things. Or there would be a lot of, right, sweetheart, what are you doing? Like, do it, just, that type of stuff. Yeah, a lot of bum pinching and all those type of things, or just really not nice situations to be in at all.
Did you learn to accept that, or
no?
Did you rise above it?
No. But I think
it's not 1970.
I think you could. I think you always have to deal with the situation as kind of, if somebody's pissed up, am I actually going to nick somebody for sexual assault when? Do you know what I mean? It's kind of, or can I go and speak to the RSM the next day? It's trying to be fair to the situation, and them kind of offloading and having a night out after it was, it wasn't right. Absolutely wasn't right. And I know I'm not the only female RMP or female in the army, I guess, who would deal with that.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot, I've spoken to a few of the girls on the podcast now, and the amount of unwanted advances, let's call it, they would receive. I mean, that's going to happen in any walk of life, but I suppose if you're in the military, it's compounded. It's more intense. You're living in each other's rooms type of thing. I mean, oh, God, can I admit this? Yeah, it's all right. Is it a statutory length of time? I don't know. No. No, I mean, this isn't bad. Honestly, it isn't bad. But we were having a block party. And when somebody shouts naked bar?
Yeah.
And stuff like that, right? So we were all in one room. Somebody shouted naked room because we had silence. So everyone snapped these silums, and it's everywhere and that. And we're all stood in this room, all glowing and it was fucking hilarious. Music was blaring, beer was flowing. The young lass who just moved into the block didn't know what the hell was going on. So she bangs on the door to tell us all to shut up, and this door opens, and her eyes just, what the fuck? And she was just dragged into the room. And we didn't strip her off, that type of thing, but she got covered in silence. I think she had a good time. She never winced, she never cried. She never sat in a corner, she was chugging a beer down. But that must have been such a shock for her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That type of... and you think, I mean, that's not normal behaviour.
It's not.
Really. It's not normal behaviour, but in the military, it's kind of accepted.
Yeah.
Whether that's the camaraderie, the banter, or whatever. But thinking back to now, as a 56-year-old man, thinking back 30 odd years, thinking, that's like, I'm sure there's a statutory length of time, and I'm set if I can mention this. But
it was every regiment though, even RMP.
Yeah.
It was just one of those things.
And you're right. It is wrong, and you shouldn't have to accept it. And I think we're a lot better nowadays than we were. Like, I jokingly said there the 1970s. It didn't change. It wasn't the 70s. It wasn't the 80s. It was probably in the mid 90s. It all started to change. I noticed it, where I wouldn't say political correctness, but forethought of how to treat people a bit better.
Yeah,
started creeping into the military, and whether we wanted that or not, the change in gay, homosexuality in the military, with that changing around 2000 or whenever it was, I can't remember. And it was like, yeah, so what? He's gay, so what? If it was last week, he'd have been kicked out of the army, which was wrong. Which is wrong. But the lads were coming out going, I've got something to tell you, lads. Yeah, fucking no, mate, not bothered. as you can fucking do your job, mate. What bother? Type of thing. Which is a good thing, and I think that the army changed very differently, very quickly. One of the things I noticed was like the punishment process, when our guys came in and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Whether that's a good thing or not, I don't know. I'd rather have gone to jail and got beasted than get our guide. I don't know why you should get our guide to get 3 extras if you fucked up.
Yeah.
Type of thing. I think that was overcomplicating things and making it, and more people probably got away with stuff because of it. Because they didn't want to go down that process to our guys someone and more of it. In my day, you got to smack, and I'm guilty of doing that to other people. Again, there's that statutory time, brother. Whether that was right or wrong, the way we used to do it in the old days, it's right or wrong. It's the way it was, and I think it was better, or whatever. Let's jump back. Go back again between your postings where you mentioned you've been to Iraq.
Yes.
So, what was the first tour there like?
So I only did one tour. Ultimate 7. It was very uneventful. I think the most interesting thing I did was take DNA from Iraqi detainees. That was probably the most eventful thing I did. So my job there was general police duties. So I spent most of my tour in Shiba, in the police station, which was actually, obviously they're all ISO containers, but for whatever reason, the police station was actually built around these very small concrete, it was like in a concrete bowl. So when it rained, we flooded every time. Like, oh, I wonder who did this. I wonder why.
That's the Royal Engineers go for putting them over there.
Yeah, I think there was obviously crime happens. We dealt with road traffic accidents, thefts, criminal damage, sexual assaults. Things still happen out there. The only thing is that you can't deal with things probably in the way that you would do, or I would have done in Germany. So there was a sexual assault that was quite a serious one that happened, and we ended up getting the whole regiment out on parade underneath floodlights, and they basically had to march one by one past a bunch of RMP and this poor female that was stood in between us so we could identify this person.
I mean, I wouldn't say that's over the top because it's not, but that must have been quite horrific for her.
Yeah.
To be put in that situation as well.
Yeah.
That's quite.
Yeah, it was
unsettling.
I think with kind of going out on patrol and all different type of things, but I think also there was quite a lot of Fijians within that regiment. And obviously, that the Fijian rank structure is very different to the military rank structure. Even though somebody could be a corporal in Fijian, it might be, I don't know, some major or something. So there was this real risk as well of the people involved that they would end up getting murdered at some point if we had not dealt with that situation, removed. Probably shouldn't say too much more on that because I don't know if that. Obviously, it's just, it was as kind of like an overview of the different things that we dealt with. It was, I went to the A-pod a couple of times. Yeah, it was a very uneventful tour.
I mean, that leads me on to a question there that you kind of almost mentioned, or it made me think of it when you said it, was, when you're dealing with the crime in the military, and you approach the regiment of the suspect or even the victim, do you find that the old adage you see on the TV shows and movies and stuff like that, where the regiment closes in and doesn't want to give information and this, that, and the other? Did you find that used to happen?
Sometimes, yeah. Which RSMs have been in trouble before with the RMP. I would probably say, if dealt with in the right manner, then we could do what we needed to do. There was sometimes when it was kept in house and it was agreed to hire. There was other times when the SIB were involved when I was a lot junior, and we had to stag on, at somebody's door because they'd been in decent images or, something, I can't think of anything, a situation in particular where there's been a regiment that kind of has, but I know in the back of my head there has been a situation like that where they've kind of gone, no, you're not coming in. I can't think, but it does happen. Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't want you to name the regiment or type of thing like that.
I will remember. So
close the podcast down. I wouldn't say I've seen it happen. Yeah, but I've experienced it.
Yeah.
Something happened that could have been quite serious, that was dealt with in-house, and the RMPs were kept away. I'm not saying I was involved with it, because I wasn't. Again, there's that time limit.
You've got like a clause at the bottom of this.
Yeah. This will come out and it'll be a knock at the door about 10 minutes later going, we want a word with you. Too late, time limit. So this was like, how long have you been in now?
3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was next for you then? Like promotion wise and the next tour of duty or the next posting and stuff?
So I went to Munster after that. I went back to Osnabrück and I joined the Ops platoon, which was really cool because at that point I hadn't really had any exposure to kind of really being a soldier, if I can say that, as RMP. So we went on a lot of exercises, we attached to different units. It was real fun. It was really, really good. It was good to get a Bergen on and, do really grassroots type stuff. We did a really amazing, awesome exercise in Poland. We drove there from Osnabrück. It was a huge exercise. I can't remember where it is. Somewhere in Poland. It's a bit like Salisbury Plain.
Oski Promoski, I think it's called. The pronunciation might be a bit wrong. Yeah, it's very dark, isn't it?
Yeah.
On the night, yeah.
Yeah, and the kids kept saying that their names were Mickey and Minnie and they wanted money, and somebody pulled a knife on us one night, so that was good fun as we're carrying rifles. Not that we had ammunition, but balls. Yeah. That was such a good exercise because there was just a lot. And then I remember this W2 coming over to us and our little RMP set up like thinking we're real soldiers with our pot noodles, and this W2 coming over and I want the female. So he had come over because he knew he was having one of the RMP attached, and I can't remember, it was it wasn't a Warrior, it was a smaller tracked vehicle, and I don't
432.
I can't remember, honestly I cannot remember what type of, it was a 2-person, so we had the driver and the W2 was in it, and it was, I can't remember, but anyway, he came over to us and he knew he'd had to have an RMP, and he came over and he just went, I want the female, and that was me off on this exercise. Got in the back of this track vehicle, the BV wasn't attached properly to the door, and as soon as we went off it fell on me and I'm like tapping his legs like excuse me. Ouch. Didn't know what to do. Never been in the back of a tracked vehicle before. Yeah, so my role there was kind of working alongside them, stop and search, training with them, prisoner of war kind of handling, making sure that they were abiding by military laws and all that type of stuff. It was just good fun. It was really, really, it was also really good to see how other units dealt with like the, attacks, and the different kind of how they would deal with stuff. And it was good fun. It was really good fun. I remember coming back actually, and we nearly tripped the land. I wasn't driving. We nearly tripped the Land Rover because the trailer kind of went a bit zigzagging. It nearly went. And so after that, I then went to Munster, where it was only a debt of 5 of us, and that was very much kind of. So at that point, Just a Veteran that's on TikTok. Yeah, Craig. So he's
a funny guy.
Yeah, he is, isn't he? So he was the area or regional, he was like the big crime reduction guy in Germany. So I had become a crime reduction CO, and I went and did a qualification with the Civil Police, Yorkshire Police, intelligence analyst. So you could predict crime patterns. You could basically gather the information, but you could predict crime from the information. So when I went to Minster, that was my role, crime reduction and intelligence analyst. Dealt with exactly the same stuff, but it was only 9 to 5. I was the only female there. It was very lonely, actually. I lived in one house by myself. I lived in a house by myself. Didn't have any mates. I had no life.
Yeah, it sounds like. I mean, like we said, the attachment of just 5.
Yeah.
Tries being on fucking duty every day or whatever.
Yeah. So we didn't. It was 9 to 5. We worked. I think we fucked around more than anything. I've got pictures and videos of me trashing I shared an office with somebody, and I tin foiled everything, even case what they called case folders and everything. I post-it noted everywhere. I hid he had this little Arnie doll thing, and I held it to ransom, and I cut those letters out of the magazines and like said, you can get it back if you know. I think it was a good posting. It was just really, really, yeah, it was a bit
boring.
Yeah, and then Osnabrück closed down, I think 2008, and we were taken over by Senlager, and then it became a proper detachment. There was loads of us there, and that was good fun, because then I moved into a house with a load of girls, and we actually, in a married estate, we had a whole strip of houses that was all boys, and then this one girl's house, and it was really good fun. We had barbecues, and it was just...
I was going to say, I bet it was a very popular house. There was someone knocking on the door.
No, it wasn't like that at all. No, but it was good to like be able to just be young and go out on the piss again, or go skiing for the day with just some mates. It was good, because that time there's only 5 of us. It was really shit. And then I was due to get posted to JHQ, but I had a decision to either go to JHQ and probably get promoted, or go to the SIB. And at that point, I loved policing. I just loved it. I absolutely loved it. I loved doing the case files. I loved kind of my statements. I just to really delve into and try to do my best. So I went to the SIB. Yeah, I think.
How different was that? I mean, have I been into the SIB? No, I haven't. Not really. No, I was never that bad. Type of thing. Yeah.
I spoke to somebody the other day who didn't even know what the SIB was. I just assumed that everybody in the army would know. Apparently not.
No, I mean, like you say, I would say that you only get involved with them when it's serious.
Yeah.
And whether, I mean, I've come across them, being involved with certain things. Obviously, I won't talk about that, and it wasn't me. Don't worry. There's no time for it. There's I'm trying to say this in a polite way. The way I found them was they were up their own arse a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They looked down on us when things were getting a bit, involved and stuff like that. They were like, do you know who we are? I was, okay, type of thing. So what was that? How different was that being SIB? It's like the version, the military police's version of the CID, if you want to call it that. Really, that's the way we would look at it. Yeah. Is that a fair assumption?
I don't think really the general army kind of community would ever really have a real appreciation of the stuff the SIB go through, probably day on day. Things like so some of the things I dealt with was child deaths, serious assaults. I don't know if it was attempted murder or attempted manslaughter. I can't remember in that particular case, but there was one particular case, and it was one or the other. Really, drug offences. Historic cases as well. That I don't think. And you're just expected to just go, all right, I've dealt with that, and I'm just going to go home as a very young 20-year-old. I think I was at the top of my game. I would say I was the fittest I've ever been. I had a 6-pack. I was running out every day after night shift. Life was good, and I made a decision that was probably the downfall of my military career, really, because I didn't fit in at all. I felt isolated. I felt alone. It was a very small unit. And I think the only saving grace that really was where I was with the SIB, the covert operations team and the drugs intelligence team was upstairs. And there was some young corporals there, so I kind of had them to talk to. And so I was working in Bielefeld but living in Hereford. It was just really, it just wasn't great. I think what we had to deal with wasn't great, but then also the team, I just didn't feel like I ever integrated into the team at all. It was just, I just never felt wanted. I never felt like I was, I always felt pressure, or not pressurized, not the right word, probably. Anything I did was wrong. Anything. I remember having to read a caution to a German national, but she had married a soldier and came under military law, and I'm not really sure how that went down, but I remember having to read the caution to her, but the interpreter had to break it down, so I was doing it sentence by sentence. I knew the caution off by heart. I knew the interview, everything that you would say in an interview to kind of make sure that you did everything before you started. Like, I could do it in my sleep. And it was just like, I felt so, my confidence had been completely knocked. I remember sitting there one day trying to read it, and this sergeant sat with me, like, do you even know the caution?
Yeah. I mean, this unit that you joined, they've been together a long time, type of thing, where there are a lot of older people in it, they sound like arseholes, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, so I think that there was this one female, and she was like my mentor, and I think from day dot she just didn't like me. She didn't like me. I before I started there,
Did you feel threatened by you?
No, I don't think it was that. I don't. I think maybe it's just because there was another female on her TIFF. I don't know. I'm just assuming. But I remember turning up to introduce myself before I actually started, and I was going on leave. My mum had been involved in a car accident, so I kind of needed to get back, and then I was starting with the feds. But I turned up, and I've always been really girly. So if I'm not in uniform, I've got my makeup on, I've got high heels on. That's just how I've always been. So I tipped up and had these nice little high heel sandals on. I just wanted to go, hi, I'm Zoe. I'm going to be here, after my leave. And there was nothing. There was not. I didn't feel welcomed, and I came out there going, "Oh fuck." Okay, and then my first day, I was like, "Oh shit." It was just horrific. It was really bad, and I think my mental health went into a really low place. And actually, I posted on Facebook one night. So this would have been 2009, some point, and it was. I think I was just reaching out for help, and the W2 or the staff sergeant had seen it and sent somebody from Bielefeld to Hereford to come and check on me, and they were banging on the door, and I just didn't answer. I don't know. I can't remember what I wrote in the post. It obviously was quite alarming, but my mental health, I felt so low. I felt so alone. It was just awful.
I mean, that's good that somebody seen that and did that, right? Because you see it a lot on social media where people post things, and some people, they communicate, via social media.
Yeah.
I know people who do it. And you end up being kind of being blasé about it. You see them post this stuff every day, and the first couple of times you read it, and you think, "Oh, should I reach out?" Well, yeah, you should. But and then you think, "Oh, fucking hell, they're whinging again." But it does have its place, and obviously for you at that time, it helped, or it worked. Somebody seen it, somebody reacted to it. It solved the issue or not. It's neither here nor there, but it can do it.
Yeah.
So if anyone is listening to this, don't feel as though if that's your outlet to get your voice out there and use social media, fucking do it, type of thing. Sorry to just interrupt.
No, not at all. No, I think kind of just from you talking then, I think the actual post had something to do with slagging off the person that kind of found it. So I guess maybe bullying is too strong of a word, but my trainers were hit. They put stuff in my hood. I passed out in hospital one time, and they took a picture of me and printed it out and said, "This is the future of the SIB." I was ignored.
That is bullying. That's not. Yeah. Is this bullying? That is bullying.
Yeah, and there was a lot of stuff that happened, and it was just. And I think it was if it had just been one thing, then it would have just been, oh, like, your banter's a bit shit, but great. But it was coming from all angles, and I had nowhere to go. It was just awful. As well as having, because when you do your attachment with the SIB, you then have to go and do your L3IC, which is like your SIB qualification. So you go, I think it was actually at Suffolk Park by that point. So you have to train, you have to study for that as well, which is really intense, and then do an exam before you go. So I had to study. I was travelling from Hereford to Bielefeld. Just remember when I got to do my L3IC and I got there and I made a complaint. I put the complaint in because I kind of felt free in a way. And you know, it was just absolute bullshit because I had all this evidence, if that makes sense, without collecting evidence how I've been treated. And they had an answer for everything. They had an absolute answer for everything. And I just
Well,
didn't.
there's that thing we were on about earlier about closing ranks.
Yeah. And I wasn't given a fair opportunity to have support because the only support I had again was from the SIB. So like, I know that things. So the girl who had a problem with me, oh gosh, I think they're divorced now anyway, so actually I don't give a shit. He was having an affair.
Do you remember what I said before this?
Oh, no. He was having an affair with one of the girls that I was living with in Hereford. So this girl that had a problem with me was telling her husband he was having an affair with this girl, and she was coming back and telling me a lot of stuff. And I'm like, what the fuck is this girl's problem? So I already knew a lot of stuff without even them, you know. Yeah, so when I completed...
It's so tempted to go, do you know what your old fella's up to?
I'd been ground down that much that I was a shell of myself. I put so much weight on through I wasn't running, I wasn't working out, I was just eating crap all the time just to comfort. I was drinking a lot. It was horrific. It was really, really horrific. It really was. And I think I got really bitter about how I've been treated and how kind of I felt let down. So I did my L3IC. That was a great course. There was a really good bunch of people on there. I felt really kind of back with my people, normal people. And I'm not saying that all the SIB are obviously like that. I think it was just, there was 4.
You just got attached to a bad detachment.
Yeah, there was just 4 people and they just bounced off each other, and I don't know. And individually, one of them as well I'd known previously, and she was a nice girl, and I just don't. Yeah. Anyway, so I did the L3IC, passed that, and then I was due to be posted as an SIB sergeant to Senlager. I was like, no, this is not. So I got posted to Senlager, and I was like, no, send me back to uniform. I can't do this. I can't be in this environment. Don't want to be around these people. And I just felt so triggered and traumatized and vulnerable, and yeah, so I got posted back to the UK, back to uniform, and yeah.
Do you think that damaged your career, and that they might have thought, like, we put this effort in and at the cost of training and stuff like that, and then she's just thrown it away?
No, I don't. No.
Or do people move in and out with it?
Yeah. I think, I don't think it was that at all. At one point during my attachment with the SIB, because the covert operation team were upstairs, I remember speaking to the OC up there and him saying, hey, we're recruiting. And I'm like, hey, I'm not having a really good time with the SIB. Maybe covert operations team would be really good. And they came down on me like a pile of bricks. Like, how dare you? You've gone through the interview process. We've accepted you into the SIB. And now at this point you want to transfer. And I was like, oh, shit.
Wow. I mean, that's a knock straight away. That's an arsehole.
Yeah.
Or they're, or put it a different way, self-importance.
Yeah.
Maybe he's, you want to, assholes.
Yeah.
I
didn't even know how to. I didn't even know. I think towards the end as well of my attachment, I didn't even know how to deal with. We'd had like drinks in the mess. I didn't even know how to socially deal with being around any of them. Was I going to get a sarky comment? Was I going to be? Were they going to rip the piss out of me? I I couldn't say anything without me saying something wrong or it being taken in a different way. Or like we all obviously wore suits and everything to work, and there was one time I had like a vest top underneath my suit, like a white shirt, and it had like a frilly bit on it. And this woman was like, put a complaint in again. Oh, I can see her bra. How dare she be walking around? I was like, it's not a fucking bra. It's a fucking vest top with a little frilly bit on it. But that was a huge thing that I was being inappropriate and everything. But it was just, I couldn't do anything right. Could not do anything right at all. And it just, like I said, I got really, really bitter. So even when I got posted back to the UK, there was SIB in the same building. And I didn't know any of them, but I was still like, fucking SIB. And you know what they do? Genuinely, I think now coming away, it's a really intense role that you have to be very special to go in. And maybe I just mentally wasn't strong enough to do that. And there's some really, really good people that do that job. I just think it was a mixture of different personalities that was just chaos. And
I think once you've gone down, once their banter or bullying, as you want to call it, once you've been pushed down to a certain level, you can't fucking come back from that. No, you've got to get yourself out of that situation, which you did by getting the posting and going back into uniform. But you can't. You have to extract yourself from it. And within the military, it's quite hard to do that because you can't just rock up and go, I need to go somewhere else now.
Yeah.
You know, because like, no, you know, I want to post it. Fuck off. You know, I want to post it, please. No, fuck off, please. Type of thing. You don't get. It's not like a civvy job. You can't just go, right, fuck off, I'm off. See you later. You get trapped in that environment that you find it hard to get away from. You know, and it will just grind you down and grind you down and grind you down. And I do know what it's like to feel as though you don't fit in places. Because I used to feel like that quite a lot, even in my own peer group, in my mates type of thing. And it wasn't until afterwards that after I got counselling that I realised why, that I was out of sorts of myself type of thing. You know, but that's a different story, not yours. So what was it like when you got back to the UK then?
It was shit. It was really shit. I think I was really so I went in as a section commander. And I don't know, I kind of went in and I remember meeting my section and I laid the law down because I felt, I don't know, maybe I need to take control. I know these guys looking at me like, you're a fucking bellend. How dare you come in, you know, and you're laying the law down. One of them literally put me on my arse. We were out the back having a cigarette and I think I was just shocked at what just happened. I remember marching over to the platoon sergeant's office and I was like, this just happened. He was like, go and sort it out. I was like, okay. Just completely lost. So I was a section commander before I went to the feds. And like I said, confident. I knew what I was doing. You know, I was right at the top of my kind of corporal, you know, I was about to be promoted to coming back down, back into uniform. And I couldn't slide back into where I'd kind of left. My fitness was at an all-time low. I had hip problems all the way through. So basically from the basic training, got tearing the ligaments, I had then knee pain, hip pain. I'd had hip pain, oh God, literally my whole military career, really. So I was on the biff for a long, long time. In fact, probably from the SIB to the point that I left, really. So it just, I don't know. But the policing, it kind of came back slowly, which was really good. I did sign off when I first got back to the UK, probably 2010, I think it was. But because there was only me and one other that had the L3IC within the policing qualifications, we were kind of convinced to sign back on. So for me and this other bloke, Ryan, both had this qualification. They basically said we kind of stay back on. I don't even know what they kind of convinced us to do. Why? I don't even know. But I didn't have a life in Telford. I was single. It was kind of, everything was just work.
Is it? I mean, I suppose in my mind, being in the RPs in Germany is like here, and being in the RPs in England is like there. You haven't got as much to do. Is that right?
Theft of fuel.
Do you know that time bit? It wasn't meant. Fucking hell. I'll tell you what. Yeah, hang on. Who's listening? If years back, if you'd have drove out of the camp gates up in North Yorkshire, I won't say what camp it was. People probably would work it out. But if you hit the A19 and you went to the first lay-by and looked over the fence, jerry cans everywhere. And the farmer loved it because them jerry cans are in the car boot sale a couple of weeks later. Well, all the generators then were petrol, you see.
Yeah, I mean, we did do quite a lot of policing, so we worked quite closely with the MOD police and civil police, but it was more domestic violence. So at that point, there was no law in civilian law for domestic violence, but there was military. So you'd have like assault, that makes sense, but it was military law that kind of the domestic violence was there.
So it was ahead of the civilian law.
We had more control over and more in depth of things, but not only that, you can control. So if you do something now, I don't know, you slap somebody, I don't know, don't go and slap somebody, but if you go and slap somebody, you know, there'll be an investigation, you know, you might be called in, might get a rap on the wrist or something, but it's not really going to affect your life really massively, you know, the grand scheme of things. But in the military, something like that, you know, you get your pay docked, you'd end up, you know, going to glass house, you know. So we had the military laws had real control over the soldiers. So I guess that's what it's there for. I remember being called, was that in Germany or was it? I'm sure it was in Telford. Or maybe it was in Germany. I can't remember. I feel like it's in Telford, but for some reason it's sitting in Germany. But we got called because there had been a domestic violence and it was a Fijian soldier. And it was either civil police or GCP. I think it was, oh God, I can't place it. I remember going through the door and I went, I'm going to get my head kicked in. Going in first, you know, shit, fuck, oh my God. And the civil police standing outside. I'm like, oh my God. I think the reports were that he had been really aggressive and you know, there was previous as well of him being really aggressive. And when I went into the house, he was lying in bed and he just woke up. He was like, oh, and he walked down the stairs and every single step I was like, he's going to turn around and punch me in the face. He's going to turn around and punch me in the face. He just got back in the right van. He was absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. Yeah, it was quite a boring.
Here's a question for you then. Did you find that as Iraq and Afghan progressed, the cases of, like, say, domestic violence within the married personnel, do you think they're raised as well?
Yeah, I have a picture.
Did you see that correlation?
I don't think at the time, but I very recently, because I've been getting all my military pictures back out, I remember there was a picture of I'd taken in the police station, and we had a whiteboard with number, rank, name, and then the offence, and it was like assault, domestic violence, assault, domestic violence. So it was all kind of assaults. Yeah, I think probably. Yeah, I think thinking back now, probably. Yeah, I actually got arrested once in Germany. By RMP.
Did you not put your card out and go?
Right.
What's your free card?
Basically, the
shows your warrant card. I've got one though.
My sister. So I lived in Munster, and my sister lived in JHQ. My older sister lived in JHQ, and she was married to a soldier. And there'd been some sort of domestic incident. She rang me up and was like, "The RMP have taken him. Don't know where he is. I'm worried." So I was like, okay, I can find that one out. So we had a system called Red Caps.
Naughty.
No, I know. So you could basically, I could search anybody's regimental number as long, I mean, technically anybody in the army, anybody who had served previously, anybody, but it was kind of in a not a software, but it was kind of locked. So you could only really search if it was your location. So it would have been the garrison or the regiments that were around. You couldn't search other RMP. That was kind of would have flagged up. But I went into JHQ's system, found out where he was, phoned my sister and was like, "You're fine. He's been locked up in the guard room." Yeah. The RSM at JHQ rang my RSM and I got arrested. Actually, not even like actual under caution. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that is naughty. We'd all fucking do it. We'd all do it.
But when I got aggied, because that was the end result, so I got interviewed twice under caution. The second time I went no comment, so that was quite cool to see the other side. but also the guy that interviewed me, he was fluffing everything up, and I don't know if it's because I was RMP that he just couldn't get it out, and I was sat there like.
Did you feel like correcting him though?
Yeah, no, I think I did though. I think I did correct him. Come on, get it right. If you're gonna do this.
Fucking come and sit here. Look, this is how you do it. Yeah.
But I remember my OC, Major Packer. He got injured in Iraq, and I remember sitting in front of him, and he was like, "So, have you learnt your lesson? If given the same opportunity, would you do it again?" I'm like, "Absolutely, sir." But do you know what he said? He said, "Good for you, because so would I." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll take my Agai." I didn't even do the Agai. I was like, "I'll take that then and do one." I think this. I have a very small circle, and it's probably from childhood. But when you're in that circle, I'm like a lion,
very protective of it.
So protective. So I've got 4 sisters, and I don't let anybody in easily at all. My youngest sister's getting married next month, and I feel like I'm going to be in the speech of, do you remember when I first met Zoe? Oh my God. I just don't let anybody in. Like, you have to prove that you are worthy of being with my sister or my mum, because my mum's single. I've never made it easy for anybody.
I'm single.
But she's been single for a long time, actually. She was actually dating an RMP. Oh my God, she's going to kill me. She was actually dating an RMP. I hated him. And this was about the time I was joining the army. That's where I got all the RMP books. I used to call him Nobby Neal. I hated him. He probably was a really nice bloke, but you ain't coming into my family without me saying so. And I, at some point in Munster, Osnabrück time, went and did my bike license in Aldershot. And we had to drive from Aldershot to London District. And when I pulled up, he was there. And it was really awkward. Very, very awkward. Yeah, they've seen each other for quite a long time, actually. Yeah.
That would be awkward, actually, yeah. So you decided to sign off then in the end.
Did it all so when I signed off and then signed back on again, at that point where I decided to sign off, I went and I was looking at flats in like Nantwich, that's where I live, and I got this new feeling I've never had before, being a pad sprat, not really living anywhere, of this normal life. I was watching like The Only Way is Essex, that was kind of the thing that was.
I won't hold that against you, don't worry.
In these girls having normal lives and normal health, and I've kind of had that bug of that's what I want. So I decided to start doing courses. The first course I did was a nail technician course. Like there's a method behind my madness, just bear with me. So right. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but knew I liked doing my nails. So I thought, well, if I'm going to do anything, let's just, so yeah. But on that course, there was a lot of anatomy, believe it or not, a lot of anatomy and physiology. So it was level 3, went into like the different skin levels, went into muscles, went into different things. Really, really enjoyed that. Really enjoyed it. And then just carried on from like 2010. Even this year, I got a course book. There's been at least 2, no less than 2 courses I've done every year since 2000. And I think because I went to college in my 30s, I went to college after like failing school. And I remember like tipping up and I was like, felt like somebody from a movie and nobody else gave a shit. And I'm like taking pictures and I'm like, I'm at college, look at me. Because it was just, I never did that. And it wasn't a normal life I had. And I mean, now I probably look like an absolute moron. But it was, so just carried on studying. And then I was doing OPTAG to go to Afghan. And I met this fabulous man. And he looked at me and I fell pregnant. I'm not even joking. We met in January. I was pregnant in February.
Wow.
Yeah. He literally.
he's got good swimmers, hasn't he? Right now. Jesus.
And my son was born in 2012. And I just wanted to be a mum. Just felt so in love with this little thing that I'd made. And I think having a really unstable childhood, I wanted, when people like, not people, probably more so girls, and I'd kind of dream of like the wedding dress and all that type of stuff. I just wanted kids. And I wanted 5, and I had all the names picked out. I haven't got 5 kids. That would have been awful. But I I'm absolutely obsessed with my children. I just want to do everything for them. So just made the decision that I wanted to be a good mum, and just not that I'm not to say that women, because I know a lot of women that are in the army that are mums, but I think it was just the right decision for me to kind of leave. And
I've spoke to one of the first girl I interviewed on the podcast. She was a single mother in the army. I was surprised how little help the army gave her being a single mum, and whether they should or not. If employees are not required to, it's your choice to have a kid.
Yeah.
It's your choice to stay in the army. Yeah. It's your choice. But, being in the military is not having a normal job. No. And I was a bit to hear the time that she had. Don't get me wrong, they weren't nasty with her, they weren't this side of her. Yeah. I thought they would have got a little bit more help being a single mum in the military type of thing.
Yeah.
Then she decided to, it was their time. Yeah.
I don't think I needed the help, but I would say that when I was pregnant, I remember being in the office and they gave me an office chair missing a what's it called, a ball, a roller, what's it called, a wheel, and that was my chair, and I was pregnant. I also remember them wanting to send me to Heathrow Airport to arrest and interview a soldier coming off a plane, pregnant. I remember when I was really heavily pregnant and it was the Olympic torch coming through Telford, and I had one of those really lovely maternity dresses, so sexy, and I was sat in an office next to somebody that had just been arrested, just me and him, with this massive bump. I don't think he thought I was RMP, which is really good, because it just looked like I was in the wrong place. Like maybe I should have been in a mental place. Like, what uniform was this?
What have you been arrested for? Yeah.
It was a really gross. Other than the fact they had 2 stripes on it, there was nothing that would have said it was military. It was gross. But there was no risk assessment. There was no, oh, you're a child, we need to kind of protect that. But also, I think if I'd made more of a kick off about it, I was moving washing machines when I was pregnant. This baby gave me superpowers just to get shit done. And I wasn't a single mum either. The man that looked at me and we got married and we're still together now. We've been together 13 years and we've had another baby and we've got a mortgage and we've got a really happy life together. But yeah, I think when I was pregnant, it was kind of, I don't know, maybe it was this whole thing. Do you know when in the army when you say that you've got an injury, oh, Biff, you'd never want to be that, and whether or not it was that kind of, oh, you've got to
as much as, yeah, no, I get that. You don't want to treat people differently, but you do, and you can't help it. It's like somebody who's someone for example, you signed off, right? And you get kind of ostracized. Initially, all your mates are like, fucking hell, again, you've signed off.
Yeah.
Nice one. Fucking, you've took that step. You've took the bollocks to sign off. And then a couple of months later, it's like, the fucking basically turning back on you. Especially the hierarchy. And I've seen that happen. And, I told you where I used to work and stuff. I've seen that happen a lot. Because we dealt a lot with, retention and stuff like that. And you can't help it. It's going to happen, type of thing. And then you're right. I've seen lasses who fall pregnant, and I think there's a kind of jealousy as well. Because you do get, you're supposed to get tricked. More like Judy's type thing and all that. Obviously, like happened for you, but there is that. I wouldn't call it animosity, but it kind of manifests itself that way, type of thing.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Without even realising, people will react and treat people differently, even though they don't mean to.
I had a lot of guilt when I went on maternity leave and got pregnant. So my unit just deployed. I was supposed to be rear party. It was always supposed to be rear party. And then I ended up doing op-tag. I think there was an RAF police NCO attached who had died in Afghan, and then I think there might have been a TA in that same kind of tour. So there was me and a couple of blokes that went to do the op-tag with the view of deploying, and then obviously I couldn't because I was a child, but I was a child. There was so much guilt that I felt embarrassed. So when my regiment came back, or my company, sorry, came back from tour, I felt embarrassed. I felt like I'd let them down. Like I felt like they were going to be thinking bad of me, that they probably wouldn't want to associate with me. I don't know. And actually, as I was transitioning even further out of the army, I completely separated myself from my friends because I just felt like I'd let everybody down. And I remember saying to one of my friends, I feel like I've let everybody down. And she was like, but Zoe, you were never supposed to deploy. And I was like, well, I know that, but I kind of had this, I don't know, it was just like this feeling of letting people down and feeling bad.
No, I get it. I know exactly what you mean. I've had friends who didn't deploy on operations, and they suffered badly with their own.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say mental health, but well, it is actually. They really, really suffered, and it was that thought of guilt, and there's no guilt to have.
No.
We didn't come back and treat them any differently. Everyone's got a job. If you're on rear party, you're on rear party. I've done a rear party when the regiment deployed to Cyprus. I mean, Cyprus is from Sunshine, isn't it? But whatever. I did a rear party, and I didn't, if it had probably been Iraq or Afghan or Northern Ireland, and I got stuck on rear party, I felt exactly the same as what you did. You'd have felt that, they're out there, I'm sat here doing nothing. They were in Cyprus, I was in Germany, that type of thing. So what was it like actually leaving then?
Bizarre. It went from this person who had a purpose. Oh God, this sounds so ridiculous. I had a purpose. I was making a difference. I felt like my life had, like I was giving back. No, that's not the right word. I had a purpose. I was in the army.
You had identity and purpose.
Yeah, and I was making a difference. Making a difference, not the right thing, but I was doing something that had a purpose, and it was doing good, and it was, it was a massive job, and I felt powerful, and I felt, even putting the uniform on, and if somebody said, oh, what do you do? I'm in the army, or I'm RMP, or, I felt strong. I felt, and then becoming a mum and not having a name anymore, just somebody else's, oh, you're so-and-so's mum. Yep. And it was beautiful. It was great. I loved it, but it kind of, when I had my first, it was great because on maternity leave, the house was tidy and it was just chilled, watching Jeremy Kyle and drinking tea and breastfeeding. I know that's gross, but it was just magical. And then when I had my second, we had a miscarriage in between, and we wanted her so badly. And then I got really bad postnatal depression, to the point that I went to the doctors and I was like, you need to do something. I'm about to kill myself and I'm taking my kids with me. But again, it's not something that's rational. It's just, I cannot cope anymore. And I don't think, I think it's only very recently that I've started to appreciate my military journey. And TikTok's really helped that. The veteran community on TikTok is phenomenal. Yes, there's banter and all that type of stuff, but the support, it's just, you can't.
I found that there is, but it's I'll put this. The support is amongst the content creators, let's say. It's the people who don't create content, who are veterans and that, can be fucking toxic. They can be, I've not had it myself.
Yeah.
Because I don't post that much on there. It's generally advertising for podcast.
Yeah.
The few soul searching things that I put on there, I probably should delete because I think I might have been pissed when I did them, but I find them funny afterwards. You know what I mean? I'm like, when you've got when it comes up and you've got your screen, your thumbnail. I'm going like, oh. Well, at the beginning of it, I think I should delete that. And I play it and go, you knob. And I find it quite funny. But I have seen lots of comments off other people on other people's TikToks. And not just on TikTok, on YouTube and on places like that. You can't please everybody all the time.
No.
Type of thing. But it can get get nasty. You know what I mean?
I've had some, and I think the great thing as well is that it filters a lot of stuff. So unless I go and have a look, which I'm really bad at doing because I'm like, well, let's see what was in there today. None of it's really got to me or stuck with me. Some of it's gone like, well, that wasn't very nice, but whatever. There was one particular comment, and it spoke about a case that I'd worked on, which was a very high profile case. And I don't think that the military dealt with it right. And this person was saying that, and that really sat with me for weeks. And obviously I couldn't say anything. I didn't want to say I'm with you on this or anything like that. That's probably the only thing that's got to me with comments. People saying, "Oh, well done, you're a copper in the army," and like clapping hands, but do you know, I've had that my whole army career. Do you know what I mean? Like, yay, you for wasting time and like pushing my algorithm, all those type of things. Like, it just doesn't. It doesn't. I think the only thing is that no, it doesn't. It doesn't. And I think having other RMPs, like there's, just a veteran Craig, and there's another guy, ex-RMP, ex-Monkey, and other RMP kind of on social media, and seeing how.
Who's the guy in America? Bob. I'll link you to him later on.
Yeah, I think seeing how they do
his name's
stuff.
Bob.
I don't know.
Yeah, he's I like him.
Yeah.
Just a veteran and Bob. I've tried getting on here, and but we couldn't get connected. The timings and stuff like that. But I'm going to push for them again now.
Yeah.
I think I might have a subculture of R&P podcast or something like that. That'd be weird. That would be weird. I wouldn't fucking meet any years.
Yep.
So you've moved. You've left the army. You've moved on. Obviously, the transition for you seems quite hard. Like you said, you've lost your identity.
Yeah.
A lot of guys do that. As we spoke about before we started recording, and I won't go over it again on here for my story because everyone who's listened to us has heard it so many times. That shut up, you fat swat. We've had enough. But like I say, it hit me many years later.
Yeah.
Which it does for a lot of people. I found, not just from talking to people, but talking to like therapists and stuff like that. It's like a gap between like 5 years and 12 years, and it's in that area there. People are just then start to find their footfall, their footing, civvy streets, because that leaving, it's like fucking asshole. It's either all you or fuck me, I don't want to look type of thing. And then all of a sudden you have to, and you either accept it or you don't. Like I've had a guy say to me, we lived in chaos in the army or in the military, but it was organised chaos. Be there on that time, do this, wear that, blah blah blah. Out in Civvy Street, it's just fucking chaos. It's not. It's unorganised chaos, and a lot of people can't handle that. But he learned to. He says you just got to learn to handle the chaos, and it's beautiful. You just got to love it, sit back and go, knobs type of thing. It's took me a long, long, long time to. That old adage where we say, "Oh, they're all civvies," and we hate them.
Like fucking civvies.
Yeah. But it's their world, and we've entered their world. They couldn't survive in our world. We've entered their world, and we have to learn to survive in it. And you can always just sit back and go, no, or whatever. I mean, you've moved on to much greater things, type of thing. With your maintain independence business. How did you get into that?
My daughter was 10 months old, and at that point I'd had quite a lot of qualifications that I gained, and I saw an advert. It was 4 hours, the advert. I was like, great, 4 hours a week, I can, drop her off at nursery, yay, have a bit of Zoe time, whatever. It was a typo, it wasn't 4 hours, and I would never have applied for the role, actually, had it been more than that. So it was just one of those things. So I ended up...
Was there a zero missing?
Wow, it must have been. So I was like, at the end of the interview, and also I was the only person that applied, funnily enough, and I was like, they were like, so it's yours, and I was like, so these 4 hours, is it one day, or 1 hour, 1 hour a day, or whatever, or 4 hours in one day? And they're like, no, it's not 4 hours. And I'm like, oh, and that was my first real interview after the army. I'd done some other stuff, like I tried to do a boot camp. I tried to have a nail business. I tried to have a healthy lifestyle coach business. I did a nutrition thing where it was called Buddle or something like that, where you input all your food that you have, a bit like MyFitnessPal, And then me as a nutritionist would then go, hey, why don't you try this? Or have you drunk before? All that type of stuff. And that was just shit. So yeah, I ended up being at this dementia specialist care provider within the exercise and rehabilitation department. I spent how many years did I say? 4 years. I was there in total for 7.5 years. The last 3.5, I managed the department across the Northwest, so over 8 sites, which is great because it was just helping people. And I know this sounds really morbid, but helping people to live the best possible end of life. So generally what happens is somebody who has got dementia or somebody who is frail or just, they're going to die, the NHS don't look after them because what's the point in resources? All the resources are limited. So an NHS physio will come in and go, here's some exercises for you who can't walk and all that type of stuff. And then that's it. So to be able to help somebody have a more comfortable death, or to be able to maybe still go to the toilet right towards the end, or to be able to lift a knife and fork, or even to get out of a care home in the 90s, gosh, I found my purpose again. Like I found that feeling I had in the army, I found it again. But also it was with veterans. So a lot of people that I've helped are veterans, and it's just, yay. Back into that, like, and the banter, it doesn't matter what it's. This guy who was 92, the banter, crazy. This guy who was in the Navy, that never, it's just there, isn't it? The banter. And then I kind of, Maintain Independence has been going for about 3 years now, and it is exactly that, to maintain your independence. Sometimes, if you think about it, you have a fall. Let's say 20 years from now, you have a fall and you don't get the help you need. You're going to go off your feet. Everything's going to go downhill. But if you had that right treatment just right at the beginning, something really, really small, it could just change the trajectory and you could live comfortably for, you know what I mean? And the difference between my service and other services out there is that if you came out of hospital, you'd be referred to an OT, a physio, a dietitian, all these other people. I can do all of it. So when I go and see people, I can do the exercise prescription, I can assess and prescribe walking aids. I'm a nutritionist. I can then come in with manual therapy. So it might be, I don't know, that they have a sore Achilles, so I can do some manual therapy. That is not something that somebody's going to get in the NHS, but it's kind of, and the great thing about that is that I might go with a plan and somebody might be feeling really poorly. I'm like, okay, let's try this. Or let's kind of talk about nutrition. Or it's just a really great service. And I'm very blessed to have had the contracts and the support that I've had so far. And it just speaks volumes about how special the service is. Yeah.
I mean, I've looked at your website. I've seen some of your TikTok videos and stuff like that. And you mentioned in there about, like, for military service and veterans. I mean, it's not something you specialise in.
No.
But it's something you encourage.
Yeah. So, yeah. I think rehab anyway is very, very expensive if you go private. So what I want to offer is 50% off what I would normally charge. And I don't know, I think having that military banter. I had a guy come in from Chester, and QDG, I think he was, ex-QDG, and we'd actually lived in the same place in Larkhill and then in Hereford, and then we also served in Osnabrück together, not Munster, Osnabrück together. And it was really great just to go, oh, do you remember like Dreamers, or do you remember like and for that particular squaddy, he came in and his shoulder was like, I can't see it, but he went like that because his, what did he do? He had a WWE charity match or something, and he hurt his shoulder.
Of course he did.
Yeah. A top bloke, by the way. And it just got progressively worse. And he came and he was in so much pain, and he was in pain throughout the treatment, but he left and his arm was like that.
Yeah.
So, and it doesn't have to be in person, because sometimes just navigating through things is just helpful. Like, why don't you try this? Have you tried that? I had somebody contact me and they'd had some sort of health condition. I don't really want to go into it too much. And they hadn't had a meds review for a long time, and we kind of talked through everything. And I was like, you really need to get a meds review, and I think that would have even just helped. So not necessarily hands-on, but just the information and the signposting. So yeah, I don't specialise in it, but I know also the impact of hands-on therapy in regards to kind of the immune system, the fight or flight, and actually how, you know, it can bring things down. I've had people cry on my table before when I've kind of treated them in certain ways. I think it's just like the release of stress and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, I understand. Excuse me, I've got a cat. Get off. Did you see her tail?
Yeah.
I'm glad I said that's a cat, by the way. It's not me. No, I understand exactly what you're saying about this, the release of pent-up tension, let's call it. You know, I mean, I wouldn't compare it to hug therapy, but that's the type of thing. You know what I mean? It's like, I mean, that is a thing. You know, I mean, I wouldn't mind one myself now and again, but that's, you know, I'm not going to get it off the cat anyway. So, what's the future hold for you with that? Is it you just trying to push it out to more and more, get noticed more? Or?
Yeah, so I have associates waiting in the background to kind of take over and to help expand the business. I know how unique the service is because I was in a position to be able to have hands-on experience with people with dementia, and that doesn't happen. I know there's not one person who's had dementia that I've not been able to work with in some way, shape, or form, and I know how special that is. I also know
it's an awful.
Oh, yeah.
My father died from it.
Yeah, it's
you know, and it's rapid as well. It's
yeah, but I think
it's amazing how quick it happens.
Yeah, but there's things that can be put in place to make sure that people, like I say, have the best possible end of life. And I think just from experience, there's nothing as somebody in rehab, there's no courses you can go. You can go and learn about dementia and how it affects the brain, all that type of stuff. But there's nothing that tells you, you know, how to deal with that person who's either aggressive, doesn't understand instruction, can't communicate. It's just down to experience. And I had 7.5 years of experience. The amount of ways and different, you know, hitting a balloon off somebody's face. Because they wouldn't. I'm like, how do I get this person to engage? But I think when you understand the body and how the brain works, and I think a lot of my rehab comes down to how the brain works and neurotransmitters, how they get released and certain things. It's all. I've worked really hard to get the qualifications, and I'm so passionate about helping people, and that's really, yeah,
I mean, that comes across anyway from the first fucking 30 seconds of this podcast about how you protected want to protect your family.
Yeah.
You know, and how I mean, like, when you think about it, even being an RMP, you're in some way wanting to be protect and serve, let's say. I mean, that's not that's a Yank thing, I suppose.
By example.
Yeah, but it's the get on to it. That's the cat, by the way. That's not sorry, I'm saying. You do come across as a caring person.
Yeah.
And like I said, even being like part of the RMPs, you probably subconsciously, maybe that's why you wanted to do that. I don't know.
Maybe. I think life throws things at you. I didn't think I had tear ducts before I had kids, and I cry at everything now. Honestly, my kid's like, "You're crying again." I'm like, I know, it's just, I don't know, the leaf's fallen off a tree. I don't know, it's ridiculous. But I think when you have a platform, and that's not just on social media, it's in life, because I have a lot of connections, I think it's really important to give back, and you don't know who you're gonna affect. So I was diagnosed with PMDD, and so for a very long time I was having these really, after my daughter and I had all that postnatal depression, they gave me some antidepressants, didn't give a fuck. They literally went, "Go and take these, see you later," never checked up on me. I could have been dead with my kids, you know. Thankfully I've got a very supportive husband. There was a time, probably in the last 5 years it started, where I was having these real lows, where I was feeling really suicidal, and then started tracking, you know, what's going on. So without going into too much detail, kind of a week before I'm due on, I have about 2 days where it's not.
Whoa, I don't want to know.
No. That's it. There's 2 days where I'm hopeless. I'm just don't want to be here. There's no point to anything. I I'm thinking about being, top of myself. I'm thinking about the kids don't need me. But I know now that it's this PMDD and, having ways to work around it and trying to, like on Sunday, I felt so low that I just had to take myself and I went, we've got a massive park in Crewe and I just walked around it 5 times and I was texting my husband and I was like, I'm okay. And I just cried. I think now I know what that is. I really want to be able to share that because there's definitely not enough out there about women's health and how our hormones are so fucked up.
I was going to ask, this because for a hormone imbalance or something like that? Obviously being a bloke,
Yeah, so it is. So
don't suffer it, and I'm never going to.
So yeah, I think within, again, without going into too much detail, a woman's monthly cycle, there is times when we're more creative. There's times when we feel kind of good about ourselves and really confident. There's times when we are different phases in our cycle. And for a lot of people, as they kind of come to that time of the month, is the hormones change and, you put weight on, you get bloated, everything starts to hurt. And people deal with things in a different way, but certainly for people that deal with PMDD, it's horrific. And you can't rationalise, you can't go, and there's nothing that can be done either. Go and take some antidepressants when I'm not depressed. It's for 2 days out of the month that I'm feeling, give me a knife, I'm slitting my wrist. Like it's like low as low. And then as soon as I'm out of it, I'm back to singing, and it's bizarre. It's so.
Do you think that some people who are suffering that may get misdiagnosed as bipolar and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Because it does sound very much like that.
Yeah, like I'm an absolute nutter. If I didn't have a very good GP who started saying to track things, but I think having postnatal depression and being that low, I think I was also very aware of what other things that were going on. But if I hadn't started tracking, I think probably I would have been misdiagnosed. But there's nothing, like I say, nothing can be done. You just have to stay healthy, stay active. On the down days, have a plan for how you're going to deal with that. I just need to shut off from the world because the littlest things. We've got a German Shepherd. If there's dog hair, that sets me off. That just, you know what I mean? Like just the littlest things, or like my husband's shoes being on the stairs, or you just can't. Everything's like, oh.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Yeah, and it's
just let me know when it's happening, and I won't send you the link to this. I'll make sure you're in a good mood. I don't want you coming for me. I know I'm sounding, trying to make light out of it.
No, it's nuts. It's absolutely nuts because you would never choose to be like that. To wake up and just feel like, what is the point? But I know what it is now, whereas for a long time I didn't, and I was just, am I going through early menopause? What the fuck is going on? I want to kill everybody. No, I want to kill myself. I'm going to go and drown myself in the bath. It's but
like you're saying, it's having the wherewithal and the knowledge of how to deal with it.
Yeah.
And that says a lot about for a lot of people who suffer mental health. Anyway, if you can it's the old thing, you teach a man to fish, and he can feed his family, type of thing. If you can teach somebody to recognise and adjust their behaviour when they're starting to suffer bouts of, let's call it mental illness or whatever. I don't know the proper words and shit. I'm just a fucking artillery guy. You know what I mean? If you can teach someone that or give them that knowledge, it helps. A 1,000 times, type of thing. Excuse me. And you've obviously learned that, and you can obviously see that in other people as well, and and help them, type of thing. Especially like with you're saying with the dementia side of it, and just you're not just helping them, you're helping the families that are dealing with them as well. I was quite lucky in a way that when my father was diagnosed with dementia, he was in a home, he was sectioned, and this, that, and the other, and I lived up in Northumberland. My sister and my niece, basically, they were the ones who looked after him. Even though he was in a care home, they were there every day for him, sort his medication out, this, that, and the other, and I look back at that, and I missed out quite a bit. So when I only went, I went down once a month to see him, And I've seen him sat there going, hey, and then the next month it was like, what may what happened? And then a couple of months, and a year later, who's that? Because that's not the guy who was there. It's such a debilitating disease. It's awful. But I always remember when he was diagnosed, I was like, oh, shit, jumped in the car, drove down there. Dad, are you all right? You're all right? He's like, yeah, I'm fine. It's like, but you've been diagnosed with dementia. He goes, I don't give a shit. I says, what do you mean you don't give a shit? You've got dementia. He goes, I'm not going to fucking remember, am I? I'm not bothered. I just laughed my head off. You know what I mean? I just thought, but that was him, and I hope if it ever happens to me, I have the same attitude. Not that it makes any difference, but you've got to deal with it that way.
Yeah, I think
we're coming up to 2 hours. It's flown. I didn't expect it to last this long, to be honest. I thought it's going to come on, talk about the RMPs, push up business, and piss off. But no, I've really enjoyed it. It's been great. I'm just don't hold nothing account of me. What I've said, anyone listening.
No, and me either. It's the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Bollocks, I say. Right, I'm going to end the recording now because it's getting on and you've got a life, and so no, I haven't. I'll sit here. I'll turn this off and I'll just sit here and cry.
Please.
No, honestly, thanks for coming on.
No, thank you.
I wish you all the best in the future with your business.
Thank you.
I'll post links to it in the show notes, and obviously, as we get closer to this podcast coming out, I'll be putting little snippets out, and I'll get you included in that, and we'll post the stuff on the Facebook page and stuff like that as well.
Thank you.
And hopefully bring awareness to what you're doing and some business. You never know.
Yeah.
The 3 people who listen to this podcast, one of them might have a bad knee one day and decide, I'll come for a massage. I'm not even going to go down that route. God, fuck it. That's a whole other podcast, isn't it? Anyway. So I'll say good night to you now. Thanks very much for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Take care of yourself.
I hope you enjoyed that podcast. I enjoyed recording it. If you could just hit the like button, and also if you could subscribe and hit the notification bell, that'd be great, because it'll help the channel grow. The more people will see it, the bigger it'll get, and the more guests I can get on, and the more people I can talk to. Well, I hope you enjoyed it, like I said. Look forward to the next one. Hopefully we'll be out next week as normal. Bye-bye now.